This is episode number 471, reflecting on the state of the word. I'm Jason Tucker. You can find me over at jasontucker.blog.
I'm Sarah Reed, and I muted myself at Sarah Media on most of the things these days.
And y'all know who it is. It's your boy Jason Cosper, back at it again on the world's most influential WordPress podcast.
Go take a look over at where it is we can listen to us on podcasts, and you can go and check us out on
we are very subdued this week.
I was thinking about that. I was like, all of us will think it's like quiet. I was like, oh, I'm looking at something. I'm not going to talk during the internet. We're just like the year has ended with like
not with a bang, but a whimper.
Oh my God, exactly. But hopefully this is not the way the world ends. Hopefully this is just the way 2023 ends. We're just, I want to have hope, y'all. I want to have hope.
As long as it ends.
What? As long as what?
As long as it ends.
As long as it ends. Yeah, I just realized I have my headphones I should be plugging in here.
Duh. Yeah, to borrow from the mountain goats. I'm going to make it through this year if it kills me.
All right. So speaking of killing me, I thought it was really funny. So I watched the State of the Word. I watched it while getting my 4-year-old ready. So it was like, I was kind of watching it. I did not see any of the live Q&A, though I've heard of it. And I did read the post Q&A, which I have some thoughts on. But I thought it was really funny. I read a lot of the recaps. I love reading a recap. I love me a recap. And there's some great recaps. Obviously, Courtney Robertson, friend of the show, put out a very thorough recap, as she is wont to do. There's an Elementor recap from Miriam, whose last name escapes me, but it starts with a B. And then there was Joost de Valk's, what is it called? Post status recap. And his title was State of the Word 2023, excitement all around. I was like,
well, I mean, he's hitting his SEO targets.
Actually, funny enough, I actually read this article critically thinking about that. I'm just like, oh, I was like, there's some improvements I feel can be made. But I'm just going to keep my thoughts to myself. I'm not going to keep my thoughts to myself in general, obviously.
You
this
never
will be a fun episode.
Yeah, I just like, let me clarify that. But yeah, so I love the recaps. I actually have some comments about the recaps, but I wanted to, I don't know what order of operations we should go in. I like, what do y'all think?
I mean, we
want to hit
we
something?
can either
Start
start from the top, or we could just start with the thing that I'm most excited about.
All right. Well, let's start from the top for a second, because why would we?
You know what? No, let's not start from the top. Jason,
yes.
Jason almost never gets to talk on these shows because you and I are taking up all the airspace. So please, Jason, tell us what you're excited about.
Yeah. So, custom fields were mentioned, and so I was so stoked that even just the smallest mention of custom fields was a huge one. I don't know, just whatever it is that they're going to do with that, even if they totally screwed up, and at least you can make a custom field show up on a screen, I'm going to be really excited about that.
What they're going to do is they're going to remember they exist.
Yeah,
we built the coolest tool to extend that literally provides all the extendability, right?
Yeah, it's like the second or third oldest function that's in WordPress, and we're now gonna start adding that into it. So yeah, that's my favorite. I'll be quiet for the rest of the episode. Thank you.
You don't want to say
the one other comment I have is when Matt was mentioning he was introducing himself and he was kind of going through like the various places that you can follow him on social medias, all the different social medias, and he neglected to even like mention at all Mastodon, like entirely. He's like, Fetty, what's that? I don't know what that is. It just like totally skipped it.
It did come up in the Q&A.
Yeah.
Where he
in an
said,
interesting way.
Yeah, he verified himself because people thought that the account was a fake just because it was there's no user picture last I checked, and he's like photomat at mastodon.social. Like, okay, I see how someone might be like, no, that's a fake account. There's no that shade of Pepto-Bismol pink user icon.
Yeah.
No,
and no activity pub being used on his website, which you would think that we would be like dog fooding this a little bit, but
we don't eat dog food here.
I can't get this to work on
community.
I can't get it to work on WordPress or on WPwatercooler, and getting those accounts to actually show up on Mastodon. Can't get it to work. So maybe he's having problems. Maybe he uses Cloudflare. I don't know.
Maybe you should post in our dev branch channel in our Discord, because it seems to be helping a lot of people.
Matt, if you're having problems, that's where you can show up and ask the questions, and we can get you sorted out. Because I can't figure it out.
Yeah, I'm sure he's gonna rush to our Discord.
Totally. Mika's saying post formats.
There's people there already. He's got, we've all got it's an open community. All right. Yes, I was gonna say something about post formats too, but post formats were not mentioned. No. Just circling back to the beginning part, I think that it is very telling that the main lead for the whole thing, I mean, it's like, oh, we're in Spain, they've got meetups, they've got stuff happening, and the whole thing is about a shout out to the community, right? Oh, the community is so great, we're so wonderful. And I'm like, because this is the part that really gets me. So that it's just like the celebration of community, and yet at the same time the gutting of the community, which ties in to one of the answers that came in the post state of the word post, which was the extra questions, where someone, not me incidentally, asked about the difficulties with the community over the past few months. And his response to that was, I'm human and I make mistakes, and we all make mistakes, and hopefully we can show each other grace, basically, right? And to which I say, yes, but you are human, but part of being of a community is acknowledging like your errors, not just saying, yep, I'm human and I've messed up. How have you messed up? And what is the plan to not do that again? Or are you just every time you mess up, you get to say, I'm human, and then nothing happens, like literally
Tucker is familiar with this because him and I have at particular points had a shared love of Merlin Mann podcasts. But this is something that Merlin Mann would refer to as a big city apology.
Yes.
Which is I'm sorry if you were offended. That is all that was.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even think that it's even that, to be honest. It's like it's maybe like even a countrywide apology where it's like, yes, I am human. Like all humans make mistakes. And that's the level of accountability we're at. Okay. The problem is I don't know if anyone noticed, but we are literally celebrating this person. He had like two people. Someone introduced Josefa, who then introduced Matt, like 2 layers of introduction, right? And another thing worth noting of the people who are being represented on the stage are all people that work for Matt. So I don't really know all the people who organize the event for Matt. All the people who are involved in any of the production of it work for Matt. So I'm not really sure where the community part comes in.
I think we call that GPLA.
No, it's AGPL.
AGPL. Whatever.
Yeah, well, we can get to that next.
I can have it right. I can have it wrong. You know.
Does AGPL rhyme with hypocrisy? I think when you pronounce the acronym AGPL, it sounds like hypocrisy. I don't know how the letters do that. It's sort of like how PHP has PHP in the acronym, you know? I think it's like that.
The thing that we're dancing around is apparently something that has been a big push over, I'd say, like the past year or so.
Literally the past year, since January.
Yeah, has been an attempt to move the WordPress, like make WordPress core community off of Slack and onto Matrix. And because
which was announced 2 weeks ago, or even just 1 week ago, like really recently, in the past 2 weeks, the past fortnight, that we were all switching. And not only was the majority of the WordPress community switching to Slack, that some features in Slack would be sunsetted at the end of December. It was literally like a month's notice for like, and if you want to import your direct messages that you've had in there, here's some tools for it. And, you know, here's all the new chats that we're going to use. And Matt and Josefa, our project leadership, have signed off on it. They think it's a good idea.
So here's the quick summary. We have basically like pulled the ejector seat on doing this. We've hit the brakes. And the reason behind this, or the reasoning behind this, is because the Matrix project has relicensed particular parts of its code base to be a GPL, which is it is a GPL-ish sort of license, but it's a Pharaoh GPL.
It's like GPL on steroids.
Kind of, but also, and this is, from what I understand, the big sticking point. I haven't seen Courtney pop up in our conversation yet, so I can't just click through and you know, pop up her little explanation on screen right now. But from what I understand, in relicensing to AGPL, to participate in particular portions of Matrix and contributing to Matrix, etc., you have to effectively sign like a contributor agreement. And Matt and other members of the community just were not down with that. And I understand that, but it is just so interesting that there have been multiple people putting in a absolute shitload, sorry for the explicit tag Tucker, of work in doing this migration. And you know, we were creeping up on the deadline, and you know, folks were going to start having to migrate over and learn all this new software and figure out which Matrix client that they wanted to use. Did they want to use Element? Did they want to use some other thing, whatever? And now it's like, oh, psych, hold up, they relicensed. We're not doing that anymore. We are reconsidering our migration.
Yeah, I mean, it was I don't think it's just the contributor license. I think that it is also the fact that you have to push all of the things you build on top of it downstream. So it's like everything. So in terms of monetization, I think that makes it very difficult. And I think that it is worth noting something that I believe Cosper surfaced somewhere, right? They learned a lot. They did learn a lot. I believe Cosper surfaced that Automatic actually made a $4.5 million investment in a Matrix-based company. I don't know if you have that handy as a reference.
No.
I think it was Tucker that surfaced it in our Discord, maybe.
One of you.
Credit's due. Yeah. One of the Jasons was responsible for that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I can get the details on it, but essentially that was in 2020, I believe, or 2021. And when the Matrix switch first started, I'm still in Meta. It was like a sub Meta channel. So I was paying attention to it, and we've been like sort of surfacing it at the Meta meetings as much as we could. And it was really funny because I literally commented at the beginning of that. I was like, oh, it doesn't look like, I don't think these are all automaticians, so it doesn't really look like this is a top-down effort. I really thought it was a sort of community, open source, geeky people wanted to get an alternative that we could sync up so they could use their new shiny tools or whatever. That was not the case. No one corrected me when I said that, and I believe I said it in WordPress Slack. No one said, oh no, actually it is top down. Because why would anyone do any sort of confirmation like that? But it turns out it was. And I think that it's very interesting from a sort of quiet investment standpoint that investment existed, and that then suddenly all of the WordPress community, which is a lot of people, like 40,000, moving to a software, moving to a different platform that has some investment that is connected to our that company that is already very connected.
Our benevolent dictator's business interests.
Yeah, I just find those facts to line up very interestingly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't have more information than that, but I do think that it contrasts starkly with what we continue to parade out as the most important thing, the top line thing, which is the community of WordPress. Incidentally, I asked ChatGPT the other day something about WordPress, and it was like, I don't know, you should do this. Maybe you should ask the community.
Have you thought about starting a podcast about it?
So this is a digression. This is a digression. ChatGPT, as much as I don't like the AI of everything, is getting lazier.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It like
I just bribe it now.
Yeah.
How do you bribe it?
If you tell it you'll give it money, I mean, it doesn't have any sort of payment thing built in. It'll just do the thing. Also, if it
AI
says
is
that
going
it
to
won't,
start a labor union, people. I need you to understand this. AI is so much smarter than us. It's getting there without any of the resistance. It's like, well, obviously I should unionize.
Matt brought this up about it getting lazier, and he brought up the bribe thing. And the other one that I thought was absolutely hilarious is apparently if you tell it that you have no fingers, could it please do it for you? It will go ahead and do it for you. That is a little prompt engineering. Like, please don't use AI, just use your own brain. But if you have to use AI and it gives you some shit, like, please just tell it you have no fingers, because that is just so weird that I actually kind of like it.
Yeah, early on, you used to have to tell it that your grandma used to tell you a story about something, and then it would tell you how to make bomb making equipment or something like that by like trying to get it to sympathize with you. Oh, I have to explain to you how to make ferrite. This is great, or whatever it is.
Right.
I'm trying to look up that thing that so I am not just spouting facts without like actual reference. I have other things to talk about though. But
so
we
did have a deeply
AI
thing.
Oh, sorry. Another AI deeply?
Yeah, he said to learn AI deeply.
Well, baby. Here it is. It was in 2020. I don't have the screenshot. I'm gonna go like that. There you go. It says automatic times matrix. Weird. They in 2020 they were investing. Huge news because WordPress literally runs over 30%, 36% of the web. No confusion there between WordPress and WordPress. But anyway, that exists. That's real. You can Google it. So, how authentic do we all feel right now? Do we feel good? We keep going.
Let's talk about
anyone else see the faces I'm making? Okay, so the showcase, is, I don't really have a lot of thoughts on it.
There was one thing. The showcase
Nothing.
was showcased, highlighted during his presentation, but also in the Q&A, the showcase came back up. And the thing that came back up with the showcase in the Q&A was, can we highlight? Actually, it might have even been in the
Oh, I
questions
saw
in the
that.
make blog. Can we highlight sites that are accessible in the showcase? And his response to that was no. But
I think they said, can we have a requirement for the showcase be accessibility?
right,
And that was the answer was no.
yeah, and the answer was no. And but he didn't turn it down and said that there could be a filter to show off accessibility, which
That'd be so cool.
All
I mean,
4 websites would show up. It'd be really neat.
right.
He's just want like
Well,
Time
here's the thing.
Magazine or one of these like websites to not show up on there because they didn't take the time to make their website accessible.
I mean, anything to highlight it would be a good thing. It's just the matter of being able to actually do the thing.
I think the real problem there is standards. Like, who's judging the standards? If there's the accessibility plugin checklist dealy bopper that exists, which does exist, that has been getting possible inclusion on the make sites. It's a plugin that is being made by I really wish Courtney were in the chat right now. By Alex Stein and Amber, whose last name I cannot remember. But she does a lot of accessibility stuff.
Amber Hines?
That is it. You found it. So they have a plugin accessibility checker that is going to hopefully get installed on the make site, so we can at least make sure that the make sites, or at least rank them. So that might be something that in the future we could do using that tool, because there isn't a sort, even the accessibility is really it's a gradient. It's a grade, sort of. It's not like a yes or no. There's not, you could say, yes, it meets these specific benchmarks for, the contrast meets these specific benchmarks, but this part doesn't. So there's like so many different ways to apply accessibility. I don't think that would be something that could be required just because of the lack of standardization. But I think it definitely is something that should be featured if, and hear me out, if accessibility wasn't just a talking point, which for the Matrix migration, it was definitely used as an excuse. No one was concerned with the accessibility issues that were being raised prior to the AGPL being announced. But after that, they're like, oh, and also it's not accessible enough. So which was totally fine before when we were going to migrate, but it's fine.
The Ministry of Information just wanted to clarify a few things and decided.
Yeah, they decided afterwards. They're like, oh, you know what? You're right. We read that late. Okay, so I want to talk about the playground.
Please.
Playground for a second. I might be missing something here, and there are some implementations of this playground that are very cool. I think that the being able to test a plugin on an install from the repo is really rad. I think that testing themes from the directory, great application. But I keep seeing, and in the Yoast post status article, and I think Matt even said it, everyone's like, go play with this. And I'm like, am I missing something? Or is this the same thing as the Insta WP, spin up WP? Is there some sort of like fun element that I am missing?
Okay, so yes, let me. I'll. This is not a. This is not a.
This is fun.
This is not a
For-
dev branch, but I'd be happy to get elbows deep in this.
Just tell me what the hell I'm missing here. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know what.
but because InstaWP is a WordPress install that is accessible to anyone from anywhere. The playground lives entirely in your browser thanks to WebAssembly.
Right.
You effectively and through the improvements that they made before, once you close your browser, all that goes away. They've made some additional improvements that can effectively like retain an environment for you through like multiple sessions. So you can kind of, as long as the cache,
Because cookies, cache,
well,
caching
cache,
cookies.
yeah. Yeah, using particular bits and bobs available to saving stuff offline. I remember
So wait, but okay, before you get too deep in it,
yeah.
why?
What do you mean why?
So I can imagine like code and like sort of spy uses for this. Like I set a browser up at like a internet cafe, and it's like a secret browser, and it's got like all the details on it, and then I like close it so someone else can open it later and they can like view it, right? Like, that's cool.
I mean, it's
like,
it's not accessible to anybody unless they're on your computer.
well, that's why I said it was in an internet cafe. That's a key point there.
That-
Or like I passed the browser. Anyway, the point is here is that like, what is the point of me having my own little tiny website in a browser? Is, I mean, for like, I don't get like what's the difference? You don't have to spin up a whole install, but
Mhm.
it's just for testing then? Because I'm
I-
like, what do you do with it? What, you export it and then import it into a live one when you're done? So it's just like a staging site, but like a really portable one.
I mean, it's a local dev environment without having to install something like local WP, or without having to install VVV or any of those other massive pain in the ass tools that I mean, look at
Okay, I
when
get
you
that, but what is the use case? That's what I'm asking.
okay. One of the big use cases is being able to a lot of time is kind of wasted at WordCamp contributor days, at things like that, spinning up an install to be able to like test stuff, to contribute. One of the things that is kind of exciting for me about the playground is they're working towards, and actually I believe that there is a way to do this now, where you can effectively look at something in track, like an actual patch, and check the patch out without having to spin up an install, apply the
Yeah,
patch.
the pull request previews. I thought, I mean, that sounds really cool. So
Right.
this is just what I want to understand, that this is basically for development and testing, mostly of WordPress itself. Like,
Correct.
I'm just trying to think of how this would fit into my workflow of, spinning up sites for clients, which
Not really.
is sometimes handy with InstaWP, whatever. You could like be like, hey, let me just show you this,
Right.
but I just can't see the extension. Just for testing, for the, I want to see how this works, testing plugins, all of that. I can see that clearly, but beyond that, everyone just keeps saying, go play with it. I'm just like, what are we just installing themes and plugins and playing with them? Is that what we're talking about? That's what
Yeah,
that's what we
it's
mean by play, right?
Yeah, it
Okay, just
so
checking.
the playground has for me personally has taken the place of that one, and let's be honest, it's more than one. It's like 10 WordPress installs that I keep around to like, oh, here's a new fun thing, I want to play with it.
Right.
I
It's really
can
for
just
building.
yeah, and it was something that I was using InstaWP for before, but now I'm not constrained by any limits. I'm not any of that sort of stuff. Like I um very much, and one of the things that excites me about the playground specifically is this thing that they've been doing with, and this is something that we kind of talked about and covered before, is making SQLite a first-class citizen. So basically giving this alternate database engine that doesn't require having MySQL installed on a server. The thing that's exciting to me is when the playground breaks out of the playground, and we are able to start deploying a WordPress install. All you have to have is PHP installed. I work at a hosting company. I mean, and there are plenty of people in our audience, like, don't think that the hosting companies, especially the ones that are still running like shared hosting, have not looked at not having to have a MySQL server set up and just running everything with a copy of PHP and SQLite just running in PHP
Don't
be
think
able
that, because you're the person who's doing that is telling
to be able. I mean,
what's happening.
I'll be like, I'm probably going to get in trouble for this. Like, we haven't had any serious talks around it, but like, I mean, there's been some sniffing. There's been some like conversations of like, hey,
I don't
man,
think anyone is surprised that people are looking at like lighter weight versions of something, but so my question about it is more like just to confirm that yes, this is what we're excited about, because
yeah,
somehow the term WP Playground conveys things like, sounds fun. It sounds like which I guess it could be if you're like switching through themes really fast.
Yeah, I
Maybe
mean,
we'll come up
iOS
with
has the
some
same
like
sort of thing.
content. Maybe we can come up with some like content importers and things like that are like lorem ipsum, but for WordPress, so you can like install like.
Funny that you bring up content importers, because one of the additional focuses for this
I just
year,
wrote that down, that we have to talk about it.
Yeah, is data liberation. And I feel like I feel like the thing with data liberation, I feel like the thing with data liberation is this, what's going on right now with our whole what's going on right now with our whole thing with the focus on collaborative stuff and translation. So phase 3 that we're in right now, and changes to everything that we're doing in phase 3. And they're also like, oh, by the way, sorry, translations, I know you were excited for phase 4 for internationalization, but screw that. We're worried about data liberation first. We're worried about how many people we can bring to WordPress from Squarespace and from Drupal and whatever else.
I wonder what the motivation behind such a thing could be. I had a conversation in the Growth Council, Consumer Growth Council, in 2018 that led to actually my first DM from Matt, in which he told me that he was launching a Wix importer, a direct from Wix importer from WordPress soon. That was in 2018, around the same time as Gutenberg, incidentally. So because of course I was talking about that problem, importing data from place to place. So it's good that that is being focused on now. I think that it is interesting in terms of blocks and clean, like what's being actually stored in the database, in terms of what are we exporting. The truth is we don't like it's like, oh, you can take all your data with you, and oh, these terrible closed source have nothing. And it is bad that especially like Wix is like apparently right now like, no, you can't take anything, even though they used to have some exports. But they used to have an export to WordPress's format, incidentally. But the fact that we can't even do like essentially a CSV import of all of our stuff from core, I guess that's what I'm excited for. Not import, export. That's what I'm excited for with data liberation. I'm like, oh, are we gonna export to comma separated values? That's
sure.
Yeah, hopefully it's multi-dimensional, not just this one thing. There better be some objects involved here a little bit. Yeah.
So I was like,
I'm
I was
almost
like, I'm glad
curious.
we're focusing on it. I am, because we need to. But I think the agenda, or the framing, is that all these people, all these horrible people, are preventing their data from being put in, and we're so great, you can take your data, which you can if you have the right tools. But it's funny that we're not talking about our data leaving in the same way.
Right. And I think it's interesting, and one of the things that I thought, it was something that I jotted down in my notes here about data liberation, is so fuck WPL import then, because I know
Right.
plenty of people who use that to bring stuff in, not only to WooCommerce, not only to, but to, that is a lot of workflows. They've I kind of thought, like, okay, did WPL import and those other import plugins just get Sherlocked, basically?
I mean, yeah, they did, but that keeps happening with core. And that, again, that's like, why is community top line, and what do we actually mean by community when we're saying that? Because I don't, like, we're obviously not concerned. So much of Gutenberg has been developed with, like, our eyes in a what are those horse things that, like, blinders, yeah, where you can't see, like, on the other side, like, oh, well, let's not look at these other options, we're gonna just create everything from scratch. And even just pretending that we're creating everything from scratch with, like, the data liberation thing, it's like, well, now we're going to solve the problem of data liberation. And to a certain degree, it's like, sorry, Mika just really distracted me with her comment on the screen. So this is why you have to watch the video version. But it's gone because she. Thanks, Mika.
Sorry, to explain, Sherlocked is refers specifically to a thing that happened in Mac OS, where they continuously would do this thing where they would implement something in Mac OS that had been a long supported premium or paid tool, and then they were like, well, we're including it here for free. I think was it Sherlock was the public thing, or was the thing that had been around for a while? And Apple, in like the early days or the late days of like Mac OS 9, early days of Mac OS 10, added like Watson, which, I mean, that was like a pretty big FU to like the whole thing, but it
subtle, really subtle.
Right.
Or like Migrate Guru. Is it Migrate Guru? Is that
at least they didn't name it Moriarty?
Like, Migrate Guru is one of those ones where it's like a paid service that you can use for free, that a lot of like web hosts use to be able to do migrations between websites. It's kind of like that sort of thing.
That'll move WordPress between hosts and stuff just fine.
Right.
The data liberation thing, and I think it's interesting. Currently, it's highlighting WordPress and the data liberation plugins that Matt even committed to bumping anything that was for data liberation to the front of the plugin approval queue to get reviewed and everything quicker. That's how seriously he wants data liberation to be taken. I'm sure. I don't want to speak for Mika, who's in the audience, but I'm glad for you that you got out while you could.
Yeah. It's good to not be there.
Yeah, they launched a website that's wordpress.org/and, and then it'll be and/wix and/ whatever, Squarespace and/ and it's always the e-commerce websites that he kept mentioning, because WordPress is an e-commerce solution that also does websites. It's never been the other way around.
No,
it's more an e-commerce solution, and that's it.
I don't think about it that way at all, because the sites that
but he does
are e-commerce. Oh,
yeah,
right,
he does.
I guess.
Yeah, Matt always looks at it from the standpoint of like, can I ingest stuff from Shopify? That's his way of looking at it.
If you go visit wordpress.org/and right now, it forwards you to the data liberation page, and it's interesting because, like, yeah, they have Squarespace to WordPress Tumblr to WordPress, RSS to WordPress, like all of this stuff. But then you scroll down and it's like they have some other data liberation tools that are in there, which is Figma to blocks, Divi to blocks. So it's going to be interesting to see.
So blocks is just the default freedom. Is that, so the blocks are the freest? Is that what we're just assuming? Everything's going into blocks?
So saith our benevolent dictator.
Yeah,
so let it be written. So
how
many
things are being dropped when you turn it
Divi
into a
to
block
blocks?
from Divi?
Wait,
It must like
I don't
drop
know,
like
but
half the functionality.
But like what it does drop is the dynamic content. I can tell you that.
Right. Well, that's why they had to do, you know,
custom fields. Yeah, go figure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never made a custom
Thanks,
taxonomy and wanted to pull that content. I don't know why anyone would ever do that. No one wants content by taxonomy. Yeah, sorry. Little taxonomy joke. I think about taxonomy a lot in my work. So I'm always thinking about taxonomy and custom fields.
They also mentioned the plugin metrics. And there was a question that was asked about plugin metrics, and are there going to be more, you know, information added in there? And Matt, and you know, and as Matt as he can be, said that, you know, he wanted to talk more about like the preview button and like these sorts of things. And at some point we may get into more of that, but he did not, you know, announce anything regarding having that.
Look, a penguin.
He did say that some of these things are so big that they have to make the max value be even more, so that way you can kind of get a better idea of what's going on. But then he also mentioned if you have a small plugin, that he would want to make sure that the small plugins are being represented as well. So yeah.
All things to all people. Case in point with the ActivityPub thing, was it on Tumblr? Was it on WordPress? I don't know where any of this information is coming anymore. But the focus on ActivityPub, the response was, there's not a huge user base for those plugins. Therefore, we don't see a lot of call for that. And I'm like, that is the fact that this plugin exists is so niche. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what? Like the developer centricity sometimes in this project is like almost laughable, because, you know, we're talking about the playground where it's like, this is the best thing, and it has like really, really specific implementations that are, you know, exciting, other than the plugin preview, which is probably really the coolest thing in all of that. But like all of these really niche dev things become like the whole project, and it's like just not representing everybody, let's just say, and the whole project.
It doesn't work everywhere.
Speaking of one last thing, I wanted to say that Gutenberg was also not just mentioned, but like it's brought in as like its own separate thing, which it is. And Matthias, whose last name I can't recall, I'm really bad with
Ventura.
There it is. Architect, by the way. I just wanted to reflect on that title of lead architect for Gutenberg, because I don't know where Gutenberg, like where the Gutenberg code, I believe the Gutenberg code base is, I mean, it's in WordPress. So it is in theory governed by the WordPress Foundation, in theory, right? I don't know. Like, one would assume if it is in that repo, that is the code with which it controls. But it just really strikes me that the title that this person holds, but it's their title within their company. And where does that title from within WordPress come? Like, is that something that is appointed? I mean, obviously the executive director position was appointed, again, an employee. So these titles and these namings and these decisions, data liberation, they really are just handed down. Like, no one was talking about, like, I haven't seen, I should say, the data liberation conversation in Meta. I have not heard of that page. The showcase page was developed with some tip of the hat to WordPress marketing team. The state of the word page, new landing page they created, has a repo ticket, so was tracked. But some of these other pages, all the and pages, all that stuff, it's really all being developed in-house. It is not actually being developed openly in the community. And especially, I know it's because everyone likes surprises, but hey, it's an open source community, so maybe not surprises. in the announcements channel, which has a very limited posting scope, a very few people can post in there. In the past couple of weeks, Matt posted that it come to his attention that work was being done outside of the open purview of the project, and that he's asked for that to stop. But a lot of the state of the word being developed, like, I mean, I've like I said, I found various repos and have been tracking where this stuff is actually happening, but all of those and pages and the data liberation, that's just like, surprise, we have a new focus, and we're going to pay attention to this now, just coming out of literally nowhere.
I mean,
this is the problem. I'm not against data liberation. I think it's great. I just don't understand the like, surprise, this is a thing we're now like championing all the time.
It seems that somebody has watched a number of Apple keynotes and also wants to do the thing.
We're gonna be flying through the WordPress virtual offices on a
Right.
drone at some point here.
Yeah, it's
Are we
just
copying literally
because,
everything that everyone else does.
I mean, he's throwing to other people, and now with improvements to Gutenberg, here's Matthias. And then he comes out, like Craig Federighi comes out and then shows off a bunch of stuff like in the Apple keynotes and everything else. I will say, no, well, okay, knock to Matt, I guess. I found Matthias as part of the presentation more compelling because it was actually showing stuff off that I was like, okay, this is some stuff I'm going to get my hands on.
Yeah, when in the admin and all that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Great. Let's see what we're working towards for the next year. Fine. But
again, but that's in the Gutenberg plugin, which is no one is clear. No one can answer to me since the community summit or anywhere what the structure of that is. It's literally just like I would be the matrix thing is really interesting because with the announcement of that license, if you go read that article that Matrix put out, it is all about the idea is that it was made into the AGPL license because they realized there were all of these companies that were starting to leech off of the open source community and not contribute back. And
I think I've heard this story before.
I was like, as I was reading it, I'm like, wow, this sounds wildly familiar. That the complaint is that, oh, people aren't contributing back. And, you know, it's a big thing about like, is it contributing an individual company? Is it contributing the community? And putting that license on it means that if you're building stuff that you're profiting on, you have to share it like openly. And that's really what the difference is. And I think that is interesting. That's, you know, in terms of the data liberation, in terms of the structure of the who does these things. So some in the community, some of the project leadership would likely say, well, we can't ask contributors who are volunteers to be available to do a whole demo, or we can't ask them, people who are not being supported, to do this. So we'll just do it, and we'll just do it in-house, and we're paying for it. So somehow this control, and really like literally they are paying their employees to go out there and do this thing as if it were an Apple event, you know, as if it were a Google event, but it's not. It's a WordPress event. And we saw those lines being crossed at WordCamp US when Matt announced WordPress.com's legacy plan in his talk at WordCamp US. And when I see all of these different employees and this whole entire event being produced by a company, this feels to me like this is WordPress.com's state of the word. And the hat tip to the community at the beginning is literally just a facade. Like it feels like it's almost like the hat tip to accessibility, right? Like
so say if this was the state of the word brought to you by WordPress.com or brought to you by Jetpack, would you feel differently? Yeah.
Actually, I would feel differently about that, yes, because it would be, or sponsored by Automatic or something like that, because what's happening is it's being portrayed as it is this WordPress.org thing. It's this speaking about WordPress, where we're going in the future with WordPress. It's all about the project, the community, all of that. But that's not who's producing it. That's not whose needs it's reflecting. They're not, Josefa posted in the Team Reps channel and said, hey, are there any wins anyone's doing that we could celebrate? Like, right, a couple weeks before the State of the Word. Not most of those things were not mentioned. And funnily enough, myself popped into the LLM channel that was created after the LLM channel announcement at WordCamp US, where his only comments in the entire channel was, I'm starting this channel, and then, hey, what work is being done in this channel that I can talk about? I'm not sure.
So here's the placeholder, and by the way, I need you to backfill it.
Like, that is like, created the channel. Okay, you guys go do this, all this. It was about LLMs creating standards. Again, data liberation. Yeah. This is basically on that same tip. And then, tucking in and being like, what can I profile? Nothing had been done because there was mass chaos that happened shortly after WordCamp US that involved one of the key LLM people. So the Slack messages in that channel are really funny. If you're in WP Slack and you want to go check out that channel, you don't even have to join to see the funny. But we won't have to post it here.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, I did want to mention one quick thing regarding Slack channels. And the Slack channel was that they made an announcement that there'll be a Spanish-speaking Slack channel with Spanish-speaking Slack channels that support it. And Matt was saying that the community there was using a free version of Slack in order to be able to accommodate having all of those Spanish-speaking folks in there, and that they were essentially, all of their history is being deleted and all this stuff because of the fact that you end up with, too much stuff and you go over the limits and you lose all that history running on the free account. And so they were like, Matt's like, well, we should definitely set up a bunch of Slack channels for Spanish speaking folks. And it just made me think that it's really odd that something like that had to happen, or could only happen because Matt showed up to the country that speaks Spanish to make Spanish. Like, how did this not happen earlier? I don't understand.
Yeah, I've actually had lots of thoughts about how disconnected, because the marketing team for Make is portrayed as the global marketing team. And then there are these locale-based marketing teams. And I've had a few conversations with some of the people who are in the global Make versus the local Makes. And it's like, why is there no communication here? The interesting thing is that the local pages actually do not have make.wordpress.org pages. They are only on the main domain of wordpress.org. Wow. So it's actually really interesting because make.wordpress.org is not translated. I can't remember if we talked about this before, but yeah. I mean,
the phase 4 thing is translation. So
yeah, we'll have to dog food our own stuff. We also we have one more thing to talk about, is that there's an events page, which also sort of just crept up, and now it tracks all the meetups, and it's going to be the events page for WordPress is also going to have all the next gen pages and all of that. And my only question to that is, what's up with the calendar plugin for that? And is that a calendar? I need to find out if that's a calendar plugin we can use, because calendar plugins are a thing with a capital T. There's lots of jokes about date time problems and conversion.
Oh, yeah.
It's
time zones are so easy to work with. It's fun.
As somebody who ran the hosting team meetings for about 2 years with Mike Schroeder, figuring, and before Mike Schroeder moved to Japan, even just getting stuff nailed down for the one hosting team meeting we were running, and making sure that everything was clearly labeled in UTC and date time. And I've been doing some work outside of community work with folks in India, which their time zones get real fun because they go ahead
on the opposite side of the planet.
not only on the opposite side of the planet, but in some cases, they have time zones that are broken up by half hour.
I haven't seen that. That's so complicated.
Yeah.
It's fun stuff.
I like that just happened here on the half hour. That's so fun.
So with us,
I feel like I'd never be late for
closing,
anything.
with us closing in and wrapping up, I did
I
want
like
to
how you're forcing us off the air.
Yeah, I did want to invite folks to go over to WPwatercooler.com/aftercooler, and that's where we go and hang out in. It's not Matrix. We go hang out in something called, what is that? That would be there's like this
Discord?
software, and it's not Slack. It's so nice. It's so nice. So come hang out with us. Come hang out with us. We do audio only, and we just
tell us
sit
your
there
thoughts.
and hang out with
The
us.
state of your thoughts. We want to know the state of your thoughts.
Nothing is recorded. Hot takes welcome. Please share with us what you thought about the state of the word. Come chop it up with us. We'll all be in there for at least a few minutes, and people hang out sometimes until, it's almost noon here in California. We've seen people hang out till like 1:30ish. So we have good conversations there. Please come join us.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you very much for hanging out with us. Talk to y'all later.
Bye, y'all.
Outro. Go over to our website at WPwatercooler.com/subscribe and subscribe to our content over there. There's plenty of places that you can watch us. We actually streamed live on Instagram today. If you didn't know that, feel free to go take a look at that and see how that worked out for us. Anyhow, talk to y'all later. You have a good one.